Hey guys, it's me Jack and I'm back with another review. In July, we're getting the newest installment in the Spider-Man franchise, Spider-Man Far From Home. So, leading up to its release, I thought I would take a look at all of the other Spider-Man movies, seeing how Spider-Man is actually my favorite superhero. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna review the Sam Raimi trilogy, then the two Amazing Spider-Man movies, then Homecoming, and then Into the Spider-Verse. And for those of you wondering, no, I won't be reviewing Captain America Civil War or Avengers Infinity War, seeing how I don't really consider those to be Spider-Man movies. They're more movies that have Spider-Man in them. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the Spider-Man reviews. Let's start this off with the one that started it all, Spider-Man from 2002. The story of the movie follows a teenager named Peter Parker, who is bitten by a radioactive spider while visiting a science lab. This gives him the exact same powers as a spider, and he decides to use those powers to fight crime as Spider-Man. The idea of making a Spider-Man movie had been in the air for many, many years. But it wasn't until 2002 when Sam Raimi, the director of the Evil Dead movies, finally brought the web-slinging superhero to the big screen. The film was a smash hit at the box office and received critical acclaim. But through the years, it hasn't been without criticism, and seems to get more and more bashing as time goes on, especially when comparing it to some of the later Spider-Man movies. So are any of these criticisms justified, or is this movie truly as good now as it was back in 2002? Well, let's find out. First, let's take a look at the cast. Tobey Maguire plays Peter Parker / Spider-Man very well, especially Peter Parker. I mean, you have no trouble believing that this guy is a dweeb. Right at the beginning of the movie, it's established that he's basically the butt of everybody's jokes. This is something that a lot of us can relate to, and why the character of Spider-Man is so appealing. Once he gets his powers, he doesn't just go off and fight crime just like that. He mainly just uses them for his own self-interest, like entering a wrestling match so he can win money to buy a car to impress Mary Jane, the girl that he's in love with. We don't look down on him because of this, we just understand that he wants to make his life better with these powers. Then, after the wrestling match, the manager refuses to give him the money that he promised, right before he gets robbed, and Peter allows the thief to escape because he wants revenge on the manager. But as it turns out, that thief ends up killing Uncle Ben to steal his car. And it's this that truly makes him become Spider-Man, realizing that he could have prevented his uncle's death. And he vows to use these powers to fight crime and to not let anything like this happen to anybody else. People like to make fun of the fact that Tobey Maguire cries a lot in these movies. Yeah. What exactly would you do if your uncle died? And the conversations between him and Mary Jane, I feel, are very well written. Yes, a lot of the dialogue is awkward, but that's really the point, because Peter is awkward, so his dialogue should reflect that. We also have Harry Osborn, Peter's best friend, played by James Franco. He too is very good. Something that this movie does very well is that it sets up a rift between him and Peter, even if they are friends for most of the movie. Peter is very smart and gets good grades at school. Harry does not. The only real reason that he's come as far as he has is because his dad's rich and powerful. Because of this, his dad actually starts favoring Peter over him. This causes a sibling rivalry type situation. Both of them are also in love with Mary Jane. Harry seems to make the first move, but it seems that she prefers Peter over him. And the final nail in the coffin is when he thinks that his father has been murdered by Spider-Man, and he vows that he will avenge him. This is a great example of a movie that sets up sequels without being so in-your-face about it. We have the character of Mary Jane, Peter's love interest, played by Kirsten Dunst. While the character is very simplistic, she is just sort of the generic love interest, Kirsten Dunst does a good job playing her. She too has problems of her own, mainly the fact that her father is an abusive asshole. She also dreams of becoming an actress. Now yes, she does scream and she does need to be saved a lot in this movie, but I do think that she is likable, at least in this movie. As for the other two movies, we'll cross those bridges when we come to them. But yeah, I like her in this film. What about Uncle Ben and Aunt May? Well, both are very charming and very lovable. Uncle Ben in particular really gets time to shine in the first half of this movie, especially in the famous "with great power comes great responsibility" scene. He's the kind of guy that's with you through thick and thin, even if you act like a spoiled brat, which Peter kind of does in that scene. And when he dies, it's really quite sad. When I rewatched this movie and got to this scene, I actually cried along with Peter. And I'm not the type of guy that cries a lot when watching movies, so for a movie to actually do this to me is really impressive. There are two actors, however, that really steal the movie. The first is, of course, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. I mean, talk about perfect casting. There's a reason why none of the Spider-Man movies after the Raimi trilogy have included the character of Jameson, simply because J.K. Simmons is unbeatable. He is Jameson. He's a character that makes you laugh, and you like him even though he's a complete dick. Although I've never really understood why he's so obsessed with portraying Spider-Man as a criminal. I guess you could assume that he thinks that his newspaper will sell better if he portrays him in that light. I mean, bad news does often sell much better than good news. But still, nonetheless, the performance is awesome. There's even a subtle show of humanity to him, in the scene where he's attacked by the Green Goblin, who demands that he tell him who the person who takes pictures of Spider-Man is, and he doesn't say. He protects Peter. I really like that. It shows that deep down inside, even if he is a dick, he's not heartless. The other actor that steals the movie is Willem Dafoe as the villain, the Green Goblin, or Norman Osborn. He doesn't just start off as an evil madman who wants to kill people. He's just a businessman doing what he can to keep his company alive. When he finds out that the military are going to stop funding his program unless he does a successful test with his new superhuman strength serum, he goes as far as testing a potentially dangerous serum on himself, as long as it means that the military will continue funding his program. Unfortunately, however, this all goes horribly wrong and he ends up going crazy. He manages to play both roles very well. As Norman Osborn, he's very kind, friendly, but still firm and strict. And as the Green Goblin, he's a full-blown psychopath. The scenes where the two personalities are interacting are a joy to watch. I know some people find it to be a little too goofy, but for me, it's just the right amount of goofy. I'm still threatened by this character. As for his costume, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I can't complain about his performance. It's great. Something I noticed rewatching this movie is just how well paced it is. I mean, this movie wastes no time. The film starts on the day that Peter gets his powers. And yet, in a very short amount of time, pretty much all of the main characters are introduced. We're introduced to Peter's character, how everyone sees him, his attraction to Mary Jane. We're introduced to Harry and Norman and their relationship. And at only the 10-minute mark, Peter is bitten by the spider. And that is shortly followed by Norman becoming the Green Goblin. The film moves at a good pace, never feeling dull. The action scenes, for the most part, are pretty good. And despite the fact that this is a more lighthearted movie, some of these fights are pretty brutal, especially the final one between Peter and the Goblin. You just feel the pain that he's going through at this moment as he's being pummeled. I also think the movie is pretty funny. I know a lot of people see this movie as an unintentional comedy, and I understand. There are a lot of goofy moments. But many of the intentionally funny ones I think work very well, like the scene where Peter's trying to shoot his webs for the first time. Another highlight of this movie is the soundtrack, composed by the one and only Danny Elfman. The main theme of this movie still gives me goosebumps. Rewatching the film recently, right when the Columbia logo comes on, and the music starts, it just brings me back to my childhood. The theme that plays over the opening title sequence is very good. It's exciting, it's mysterious, it's emotional, and it's also uplifting. There are a lot of good music cues in this movie. My personal favorites are the Green Goblin's theme, the music that plays over the death of Uncle Ben and the subsequent chase scene, and the music at the end, which finishes the movie with a bang. So yeah, there's a lot to love about this movie. Unfortunately, this film is not without its problems. The first and probably biggest one would be the Green Goblin's costume. It is just so stupid. Everybody has already said it, but I might as well say it as well. He looks like a Power Rangers villain. I mean, okay, the mask is a little menacing, sort of, but the whole thing just looks so plastic and so cheap. which is ridiculous because this is a big budget superhero movie. I expect better costumes than this. This looks like something they just grabbed from the local Halloween store. Certainly not something that a big corporation would design for the military. But honestly, Willem Dafoe is just so good at playing this character that I can honestly look past the shitty costume. Another issue that people have with his character is that he doesn't really have much of a motivation. Sure, at first he has a motivation, he wants to keep his company alive. So he kills the board members that are gonna sell the company. But after that, he doesn't really have much of a motivation. He just wants to wreak havoc cause he's crazy. Honestly, this doesn't bother me all that much. I mean, again, his character is clearly not well. He is really like the Joker. He just wants to spread anarchy and chaos just cuz. It doesn't bother me as much as a lot of other people, but I can definitely see why people have an issue with it. Also, a lot of the special effects in this movie have not aged well. Actually, that's not even true because a lot of people at the time thought they looked fake. Now, some of the shots of Spider-Man swinging around the city still look pretty good, particularly the last one. Also, Sam Raimi did make a very clever choice by setting some of the scenes of Spider-Man swinging around at night. There, the dark lighting helps hide the obviously fake CGI. Jurassic Park did this as well, and it is very effective. But then you got a lot of scenes of Spider-Man in bright daylight and it is so obviously fake. The worst offender is when he's running across the rooftops. These effects do not hold up. But that's honestly where my negatives end. I think that this is a really good, solid movie. Yes, it is definitely a product of its time, but it's still really entertaining and engaging, with good characters, excellent performances, a well-told story, and some great emotional weight. Overall, I'm going to give Spider-Man an 8 out of 10. So thanks for watching, and be sure to let me know what you think of Spider-Man in the comment section down below. And join me next time for my review of the sequel, Spider-Man 2. Till then, I'm Jack, and I will see you next time.